speaker portion of the meeting on this day, October 23rd, 2023, in Doylestown, PA, at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group of St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is a good friend of mine. I'd like to introduce my friend Nick, and he's going to give his he's going to talk about Step 4. Let's give Nick a warm welcome.
My name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Nick.
And I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to clean and sober. This morning I was out with the dogs. I'm just watching the beautiful fall weather and the leaves, falling off the trees, and it kind of made me just kind of think and ponder about what I wanted to say about Step 4 and how just watching the leaves fall kind of reminded me of how we try to discard the stuff that's blocking us from God in doing this step. So I tried to associate that. And I could look at it two different ways, like the trees start to become ugly and bare and barren, or they're shedding those beautiful leaves, and they come back again. And it's the perspective I have on how I look at the things, seeing the beauty in the forest, no matter what. And I didn't always live like that. This is stuff that AA has taught me. It's changed my life completely. It's a beautiful process, and I fought it for many years. I was introduced to rehab in AA in 2009. For 7 years, I fought this with every fiber of my being. The willpower that I thought I could use to stop drinking and drugging was so strong to not do AA, to not accept help, to not get a sponsor, to not be a part of recovery, just not be done. And I fought it for so long with the most intent, just to think I could somehow maybe control or moderate or get a grip of this thing and just not let it get out of control over and over and over, just insanity, until it got to a certain point of complete desperation, and I found myself in my 7th rehab and was willing to do something differently for once. There was so much pain inside me. There was a lot of material stuff going on too, but it was the internal bottom that I really hit that led me to be willing to do something differently. So talking about Step 4, this was a step when I did get a sponsor in 2009, and we were in his car, and it was awkward, and he was like reading to me, and we're in this book I never heard of, and he's asking me about God, and I thought I knew God because I was Catholic and had this idea of God, and we quickly just, we read a few things, doctor's opinion and stuff, and he gave me some worksheets, and he said, now go home and do this, just to see what kind of willingness I had. And I looked at this thing, I said, there's no way I'm doing this inventory, whatever this stuff is. I got no, I'm the one who's a victim here. Why should I look at any of this stuff? Just had this attitude, right? And I just put it in my rehab drawer, and that was it. So that was as far as it went for any kind of actual work or inventory. The unwillingness, and I just didn't know how important and vital that stuff was. And I was unwilling to do it. So that was the beginning of that. So I'm going to use the book because I love the book. It's changed my life to learn and study this book with other people. So by now, if you're on Step 4, you've started to develop a relationship with God. You're trusting God. In Step 1, we get honest. In Step 2, we become open-minded. In Step 3, we become willing. The how of it, and you're starting to develop trust in God, and you made this decision and saying the 3rd step prayer that I'm going to trust God from now on, let him run the show, and which can help us to become fearless, right? To write this step fearlessly, which I knew I couldn't do before because I was too feared up, and I didn't know it. I wouldn't admit it, but I was full of fear, full of resentment, full of guilt, shame, and remorse. All these things that were blocking me, basically. So. On page 64, therefore we started upon a personal inventory. This was Step 4. A business which takes no regular inventory usually goes broke. Taking a commercial inventory is a fact-finding and a fact-facing process. It is an effort to discover the truth about the stock and trade. One object is to disclose damaged or unsellable goods, to get rid of them promptly without regret. If the owner of the business is to be successful, he can not fool himself about values. We did the same thing with our lives. We took stock honestly. First, we searched out the flaws in our makeup which caused our failure, being convinced that self, manifested in many ways, was what has defeated us, was considered its common manifestation. And it goes on to say about how resentment is the number one offender, destroys more alcoholics than anything else. And I didn't believe that. I thought that these were justified resentments I had and reasons that I could hold on to that were mine, and didn't realize how sick they were actually keeping me. Until I was stressed and pushed to write this 4-step to look at causes and conditions and be okay with looking at my past and not dwell in the past, not live in the past, but to move forward with it and close the book on it and to learn from it. So and again, it tells us here that we are spiritually sick and we have mentally and physically ill. A spiritual malady will be overcome. We straighten out, and we ask ourselves why we were angry. In most cases, we found that it was our self-esteem, our pocketbooks, ambitions, personal relationships were hurt or threatened. So we were sore, we were burned up, and we have grudges, right? And I've got close friends who can hold grudges like nobody else. And there's a funny saying, have you ever heard of Irish Alzheimer's? We only remember the grudges. So I could relate to that. So and the book makes it so simple with the brackets here and how to write it. And I complicate everything. I'm thinking I got to write this essay about my life and the stuff like that. And when I did my 4-step, I made it as simple as possible. A person, the action and the cause of the action. And then the important thing is to look at my part in this, and my sponsor explained to me that I'm the common denominator in all of these scenarios. I had some kind of part in all these situations, all these issues that I thought that were justified resentments or resentments. So that was eye-opening to know I could always find some kind of reason or something that I was a part of in this inventory. The usual outcome that people continue to wrong us and we stayed sore. We fought and tried to have our own way, and matters got worse. And this can lead to futility and unhappiness, and it can be fatal. And I got to remember that if I don't look at resentments on a daily basis and don't look at myself and inventory myself on a daily basis, I'm headed in the wrong direction. And the awareness that AA has taught me to look how I'm treating myself, how I'm treating others on a daily basis is vital in staying healthy internally, mentally, physically, spiritually, staying healthy. If we were to live, we had to be free of anger. The grouch and the brainstorm were not for us. They were dubious luxury of normal men. For the alcoholic, they were poison. So it talks about being evil and anger being a corrosive thread, and to learn. To learn to not, believe me, there's times when we get angry. It's impossible not to. But what I do with that is my decision, my choice. What I do with that anger. Will I pray about it, or will I stew in it? Do I want to stay sick? Do I want to let the anger course through my veins and feed the pain and hold on to that stuff? And this is all the stuff that AA has taught me to learn to pray when I get upset, pray when I get agitated, to pray and pause and not say what I want to say when I want to say it, and that's something I could never do before, It can be hard. I understand this is a very, very difficult thing to do, to write this step out, and and numerous rehabs I've been in, I always heard people say I stopped on my 4-step, I didn't do my 4-step, and I went back out. And I understand that now. And this is all a learning experience, all in retrospect that I learned by many years of trial and error and failure and the insanity of it all. So some important stuff here is that we avoid retaliation argument. We wouldn't treat sick people that way, and that's one thing I go through on a daily basis is in dealing just not only people in AA, but in the real world out there, that a lot of people are spiritually sick. Not everybody is working a program of recovery, and that's okay, and for me to pray for people, especially the ones who can get under my skin or upset me. I work in a barber shop, and there's people that come in on a daily basis, and some of the stuff that comes out of their mouths, I have many opportunities to practice my program throughout the day. A lot of pausing going on and just like restraint, okay, and and so it's a beautiful thing when we can learn to apply these principles in our lives, with the family, with our employers, with our jobs and stuff like that. And this stuff does work in all situations. And I didn't believe that until you start to put it to the test. So I kept my list. I've heard of people burning their lists, and I held on my list because my list became my eighth step. And eventually, all the people that I had resentments towards and resentments in myself, I can look at and use that as my eighth step. So the choice is yours on what you want to do with your 4 steps. Some people say they burn them, they put them down the garbage disposal, they take them to the ocean, light up, whatever they want to do. But I like to have mine so I can show other people I'm working with, and we can learn off of it together and let them see my list in that way. So, and that's just something that I've done with that. So, and and actually with working with guys, I went over my list again and looked at some of the stuff I thought were big deals back then, and looking at it now, like, wow, I can't believe that really burned me up back then. And it's like how personally I took everything, how soft and how easily I was hurt, by some things. And not to downplay anything, but I mean, that's something I can look at now and say, wow, I mean, I really must have been, hurt or just upset about something that maybe wasn't even that big of a deal, and that's okay. So again, it was cool to break it back out and look at it again when I was doing some inventory with some guys, and I could use that. So we're referring to our list again, putting out of our minds the wrongs others had done. We resolutely looked for our own mistakes where we had been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Though a situation not been entirely our fault, we try to disregard the other person involved entirely. Where are we to blame? The inventory was ours, not theirs. When we saw our faults, we listed them. We placed them before in black and white. We admitted our wrongs honestly, and we're willing to set these matters straight. So that's one thing that was vital to me, was to look at my history and be okay with it, and put this stuff on paper and say, okay, I'm going to own this. I'm going to take ownership of my life, ownership of the mistakes I've made, ownership of how I treated people, and move forward from this, which was very scary when I wasn't willing to do that, and I wouldn't do it, because again, I thought, like I said before, I thought I was a victim. I thought that people were doing me wrong. I always got the raw deal, the short end of the stick. And I had these justified resentments that I was holding on to, which were keeping me sick. So coincidentally, I was reading with a guy yesterday, and we were talking about the spiritual appendix. So on page 567, 567 is the spiritual experience. Explains on how to have a spiritual experience, or what could be necessary. The steps, commitment to AA, dedication, and talks about. Some people have a profound experience where it's like, boom, they're zapped in the sunlight of the spirit. Other people have what's called an educational variety, which is a slow development of a spiritual experience. But the whole promise is that if you go through these steps and work this book in your life, you will have a spiritual experience, a psychic change, which will change your life and your perspective on life and how you see things. And that is something I've experienced completely. So. Most emphatically, we wish to say that an alcoholic capable of honestly facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he or she does not close his mind to the spiritual concepts. He or she can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, and they are indispensable. So I was also instructed the who of it, the willingness, honesty, and open-minded, or the how of it, the honesty, open-minded, and willingness. Whatever the case would be, and however it suits you, the idea is that we are willing to do this stuff and to have a different attitude, to be open-minded, to do these things and accept it in your life and adapt these principles, is what it's really all about. I had an attitude of arrogance and defiance when I came in here, and it just I was not into this at all. I was not into it. So. Until the pain became great enough that I was, and that's basically the black and white of it. Until I was ready, until I was done, until I was wholeheartedly ready to make a serious change and commitment and dedication to recovery in my life in AA, there was no hope for me. And it even says I want to go on to the bitter end or accept spiritual way of life, and an alcoholic's got to ponder that, walk in the sunlight of spirit, happy, joyous, and free, or live in darkness and hell basically on earth. and I have to like, contemplate that. And it's only an alcoholic would have that kind of thought. So, it's a beautiful process, and it can be, like I said, it can be a challenge, it can be hard, but it's so worthwhile. The development of a relationship with God is crucial, and if you're working through steps 1, 2, and 3, I mean, you're here, you're honest, in step 1, something, your life is out of control. You can't, you obviously, and myself, I know I couldn't stop, and I didn't want to stop until I was ready. And, I thought the unmanageability was just like not being able to pay my bills and stuff like that. It was the emotions really was the unmanageability, the emotional nature, the sleepless nights, the nerves. That was basically my unmanageability. And, and when we start to let God into our lives again, or find God, or search for God on a daily basis, we start to get the return to sanity. We take this step process. We follow direction, and I was instructed long time ago to say that 3rd step prayer slowly, word by word, on my knees, and I was unwilling to do it until I was, and I found myself in a recovery house. There's a little yellow card that's passed out a lot of meetings, and it's got the 3rd step prayer in there, the 7th step, 9, 10, and the 11th step prayer. And I don't know how many times I had that card and looked at it and just like threw it away or gave it away or lost it. And this time around, I started reading that card every morning on my knees and saying that 3rd step prayer with intent from the heart, slowly. And something started to change internally, by saying that prayer. And if I don't know if you noticed, but there's no amen at the end of the prayer. So for me, I look at it as a statement or a pledge or a commitment or an agreement with God that He is going to run the show. I no longer am in charge, and that's okay because I ran my life into the ground. I am not a good manager of my own life, and that's something I had to accept. Right here it says it's self-reliance was only as good as it went, and it didn't go far enough. We had a basis of trusting and relying upon God. We had to trust God, infinite God, rather than our finite selves, and we start to humbly rely on Him. And I talked about that educational variety of the spiritual experience or spiritual awakening, and it was a process. And in the beginning, there's a lot of doubt, a lot of mistrust. But I said, you know what, I'm gonna continue to do this and just to see what happens, and really to see where it takes me, to find courage and trust in God like that. And then it was a process for me, and it's a beautiful thing when you let God. When I let God back into my life and ask for guidance and ask for His love on a daily basis, something, like I said, something started to change internally, and I was feeling something, and I got a sponsor, fairly early, and I was probably about 6 months in, and he said, encouraged me to get this 4-step written right away. There's no time to waste, and it's important to strike while the iron's hot when you still like pretty new and fresh to get these stuff. Because what happens is we forget, we drift and we're like, I'm okay now. Like, I don't really need these steps, right? I don't need to do this stuff. I think I'm okay now. And that's the alcoholism working us over. Like, man, I don't really think I need AA anymore. I'm good to go, right? And, and that's something I thought that I did before too. And so it says here we launch on a course of rigorous action. So I sat down, took a couple hours, wrote out that 4-step, and I called him. I was excited for once. I was excited for AA, which I'd never felt before. And but the AAC was planned a long time, and for 7 years I was in and around AA, and I knew there was something about it, but I just wasn't fully committed to it. So, so I sat down and did that thing, and I called him up, and he came over, and we did the 5th step, and I took my quiet hour afterwards, and I fell asleep. My mind was quiet, and I thought I did something wrong because I fell asleep, and I had this this feeling like I'm actually doing AA now. Like, I never did that before. I never was doing AA. I was around AA. I was in meetings, but to actually start to do some kind of step work and to feel something happen internally was like new to me, and I ran with it. And it was the beginning really of taking action in my recovery. Yeah, I was been to meetings. I doing that kind of stuff, but to really take this step was vital in in the process of getting rid of the stuff that was keeping me spiritually sick and spiritually broken for so long. And that was basically the beginning of it all. So if you're nervous about doing it, just do it, because it's so worthwhile. Get free of everything that keeps you sick, that keeps us ill, that keeps us from maybe going back out there. And it's important to, when you do write the 4-step, get the 5th step done as quick as possible. They say it's like walking around with like a loaded handgun. You have all this stuff on paper, and you got to get it out. You got to get talked about. And it's awesome for me. It's awesome when I do a 4-step or 5th step with somebody, because I share my experience with them, and it helps them to develop trust in AA and me. I suffer from the same stuff you suffer from. We're no different. And if I can get free, you can get free also. So trust in the process, and develop that relationship with God in steps 2 and 3. Ask for guidance, ask for help. It's such a beautiful thing that if you just accept this way of life, accept AA in your life will change. And the sky is definitely the limit, if you put recovery first and build your life around AA, around God. I thought it was vice versa. I thought I'd fit AA and God into my life, and it's become the complete opposite. And they told me that in my first rehab: make recovery the most important thing in your life, and everything will work out. And I doubted it, and I didn't do it until I did. And it's just that simple. And in the beginning, I was in that recovery house, and I got a job that I could definitely make meetings regularly. And there were other opportunities. I'm like, these hours are not going to work, because I need to make these meetings on a regular basis. I need to make my recovery my focus. And that was a completely different angle I never had taken before. And it was vital for me. So April 18th, 2016, I picked up the phone and got a bed at Penn Foundation. So April 19th, 2016 is my sober date, and that's just by the grace of God. And I do like to celebrate my anniversary. It's important to me. I've had other dates that kind of were sober dates, sort of, but nothing like this one. It has so much meaning and value now, just because it's basically when the pain pain stopped. The fight was over. I surrendered completely, and my life, I started a new life basically from that point on. And it's emotional. It can be emotional, and it should be. It is for me, and that's up to you how you look at it. But for me, I know I had so much effect on so many people and myself, and it's the ripple effect of my recovery is unbelievable. The relationships that I've regained, the trust I have in my family, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. What AA can do, what God can do, if you're willing to put in the work and really give yourself to AA. And it's a tough sell. It really is, and I fought it for the longest time until I didn't. So we look at this inventory, and we move forward, right? We uncover and discard, and not to drift into more of a reflection on the past, but to say, look, I'm gonna look at my life, move forward through this stuff, and be okay with it, and not let it harbor or fester anymore in my life and control. And my past no longer defines me, and it's a completely different life I have today from how I used to live, living in in a lot of joy and happiness, no matter what comes my way. Loss of loved ones, or suffering in my family or friends, or people in the program passing away, or going back out and struggling. Like, you just pray for them and offer that hand of AA always. And alcoholic or not, I try to do my best just to help whoever I can, whenever I can. And that's the beauty of the program, to really take what we learn here and apply it in our lives out there. How am I driving? How am I treating the clerk at the store? How am I, treating others? My employer, my coworkers, and I can be all fine and dandy in a meeting and just saying what needs to be said here, but am I really taking this out there and practicing these principles in everything I do? And now today, it becomes habitual, and it's just second nature to, once I've adapted this way of living and these principles in my life, that it becomes a way of living, and it feels good. So I don't want it to stop. And me and my buddy always say, just don't take your foot off the gas with recovery. Continue to do this. And I heard a speaker once say that's the most important word in the steps is continue. And we continue to take personal inventory at step 10, and it's jumping forward a little bit there, but I mean, just continue. Just continue to do what you're doing. Your life will go to places you won't even believe. And I would have sold myself way short from. It has nothing to do with material stuff. It's the internal peace of mind, internal serenity that comes over, no matter what comes my way. What kind of problems, you have this trust in God, and you can walk through whatever comes your way. It's a beautiful thing. So I hope I help somebody tonight, and know this helps me when I do this, and get with your sponsor and get this step knocked out. It's gonna change your life. It changed mine, and then eventually you do it with other people, and it changes your life again and again. Each time you do it, you learn more from yourself, you learn more from them, and you help them, and you help yourself to continue to have like content, quality, a way of life, and sobriety, and be happy. So my name's Nick. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks so much to the group.
Thank you. Okay, guys, we're gonna